There's a lot of amenities too, which make it very interesting. And I know when I talk about it with my clients, I ask them questions about, what do you want to do after you come home from work, or if you're retired, what are you going to do all day?
Right.
And there's a lot of amenities there. So why don't you tell us about some of the cool ones, and some of the ones that maybe aren't so much of interest to you, like
some of the ones you and I wouldn't do. Yeah,
like
no,
knitting, or there's probably like crochet or something like that too.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Like I haven't quite picked up my needles yet, but I might get there. They have a 42,000 square foot amenity building here, which is exceptional. It was built in 1997, but renovated multiple times. So you walk in there and it looks like they just built it yesterday.
Hey folks, have you ever wondered about the Village by the Arboretum in Guelph, or seen these towers popping up all over our city and wondered, is there any more? Well, I might have some answers for you on this episode of City DNA. By the way, this is the podcast where we interview people from our neighborhood, businesses, and find out interesting stuff. This week I have Tyson Hinchberger from Planet Realty. He is an expert at a lot of things, but particularly an expert at the Village by the Arboretum. Tyson, what's going on?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Village by the Arboretum has been a big piece of my career. I've been on site here since 2012, so it's a bit of a different animal as far as real estate is concerned. A lot of people, don't know about it, or they've driven past it and kind of wondered what that place is all about. So excited that you offered me the chance to have a conversation and let everybody know what goes on here.
Absolutely. And that's exactly the purpose of why I wanted you in particular to be on the podcast, because not only just clients of ours that wonder about this place and, they see it on realtor.ca and they think it's like a bungalow. Oh, wow, a bungalow, cool. But they're only 35 years old, right? And then just the public in general, they wonder about this really cool village over there. What's that all about? And, there's a lot of things to figure out about this place. So I thought it would be great to have you on and just kind of give our audience the lowdown. Yeah, so the first question I have for you is, this place is only for people above 55. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So the village was sort of predicated on the idea that they brought up from Florida, of all these adult lifestyle communities that you see down there, you hear about, like the golf cart community. And we didn't really have anything like that in Canada. And so people enjoyed that lifestyle, in the wintertime, and then came back to Canada and they just kind of, had condo options or, detached homes, but they never had sort of that hybrid model with the lifestyle element and all the activities and amenities that sort of drew them down in the wintertime. So the Village by the Arboretum is a 55 plus community. So it's a maximum of two people per household, which is a little bit unique as well. We can talk a bit more about that. But yeah, it's designed to be sort of that step in early retirement, or perhaps just pre-retirement now with working from home. Some people still have made that move sort of younger and younger. But yeah, it's 55 plus, and the village used to have a bit of a stigma that it was a place for quote unquote old people, and what we've really seen is a shift towards that sort of lifestyle desire where people just don't want to cut their grass or shovel the snow, or they want to spend more time traveling or going to their kids' activities or their grandkids' activities and not be sort of encumbered with all the maintenance of a property. So that appeal has really broadened, especially over the time that I've been here.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of amenities too, which make it very interesting. And I know when I talk about it with my clients, I ask them questions about, what do you want to do after you come home from work, or if you're retired, what are you going to do all day?
Right.
And there's a lot of amenities there. So why don't you tell us about some of the cool ones, and some of the ones that maybe aren't so much of interest to you, like
some of the ones you and I wouldn't do. Yeah,
like knitting, or there's probably like crochet or something like that too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Like I haven't quite picked up my needles yet, but I might get there. They have a 42,000 square foot amenity building here, which is exceptional. It was built in 1997, but renovated multiple times. So you walk in there and it looks like they just built it yesterday. It has a 25 meter lane swimming pool. They keep it at 83 degrees, very particular. There's a great jacuzzi in there, and they run aquafit programs out of there Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, both a low intensity class and a high intensity class. They do have, as you mentioned, you know, card rooms and craft rooms and that. They've got a phenomenal triple gymnasium, the size of, you know, one you'd find at a high school, with the same divisible walls, so you can host birthday parties, anniversary parties. There's a caterer's kitchen off of it that houses all of the tables and chairs and all the kitchen equipment, so you can have, you know, a huge party if you want to. And they have lots of dances and dinners and things. But from the athletic side of things, they run pickleball, shuffleboard, badminton out of that gymnasium as well. Then they have a huge stage, and every Christmas time they run a cabaret performance where they run a 4-day, some matinees, some evenings. But they've got professional sound and lighting equipment for 27 microphones. So some people act, some people write, some people do costumes, sell tickets. So it really is a whole sort of community environment there. And then as you move sort of outside, they've got things like tennis courts, shuffleboard, bocce, and a putting green as well. So the other thing the village doesn't have as far as amenities really is a golf course. But of course, you know, you're sort of right in between, you know, Springfield, Victoria East, Vic Valley, Cutton Fields. So, you know, you can warm up at the village and then go out and play. And there's definitely groups that go off site and do that as well. So they go play golf together, they go to the casino, they go to trips. There's a lunch society. There's groups that volunteer together off site as well. There's 92 different clubs and activities at my last count. And some of those are sort of from all different backgrounds, all sort of interests, ranges of interest. And it really does sort of stem from one or two people having a shared interest or vision or something they want to do with all that free time you mentioned people having, and just sort of running into somebody and saying, hey, like, would you ever do this? And, you know, before you know it, because of the scale of the village, it's a lot easier to start something like that. You know, in a condo, you know, you have all these great amenities, but it's hard to meet people sometimes, and it's hard to sort of get that infrastructure rolling to start a book club or to start, you know, a regular games night or something. Here in the village, all of that infrastructure is already there, and there's already a process for starting a new group. There's a great resident newsletter that goes out every month with all the clubs and all the activities on the calendar, and then there's a sign-up sheet for new stuff going out as well. So, you know, if you've got something that you like to do, or you have a hobby that you swear other people would want to enjoy as well, it's a great place to be able to get that off the ground and sort of bring it to a community where others can benefit as well.
It sounds like it's really about lifestyle there. Would that be?
Yeah, like when and you've sold property in here too, and so you understand, but you really are selling the lifestyle. And because of the ownership structure, which we can touch on after, it is a bit different than real estate elsewhere. You know, the houses have a value or an inherent value, but then there's really an intangible figure, and that's that lifestyle piece, and that means something different to everybody. You know, some people are going to take full advantage of the amenities here. They're a really social person, or they like to stay busy. And sometimes in a partnership, you know, one person's at the center all the time, and others just like the ability to sort of sit on their back deck in the sun, read a book, you know, in a quiet area where they're not going to be bothered by traffic or yelling and screaming or a pool or loud music or whatever. So, you know, that lifestyle piece means something different to everybody, but it really is about, you know, the whole community and what goes on and what doesn't go on as well, and that all sort of broadly appeals to different demographics and different people.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you said earlier, it's just like Florida, and I would say that a lot of the people that live there would probably go to Florida during the winter and come back in the spring, summer, or fall, and you know, it kind of resembles that. You know, when you look at the way people live, they kind of want to have this easy lifestyle. But when you go, just take a condo, for example, which is an alternative to a lot of people that would be looking for this type of property. You know, you have to get out of your car, go up an elevator, sometimes 18 stories up. Okay. You know, you have a great view up there, but it is a pain in the butt for some people.
For sure.
And this is an alternative where it's usually either a semi-detached or a detached bungalow in most cases, where you park in your garage and just go in your house. So it's like this transition from what you might have used to live to something that is kind of the same, but you have all of these extra amenities. Like you said, you can leave your keys at home and not worry about it while you go away. to Florida for the winter or whatever you do. So it's a really incredible and unique village or community that isn't around. I don't know of many of these around our community. If maybe an hour drive, I don't know.
Yeah, certainly not, direct comparables anywhere in town. In the village, we marketed, and Reed's Heritage Homes is the builder here. And when they originally marketed this property, they marketed it as Ontario's premier adult lifestyle community, and it truly is. And and I'm sure you've done this with your clients as well, but we always encourage people to go and look at other communities in Ancaster, like St. Anne's Village, or in New Hamburg. They have Stonecroft, and those are comparable communities in terms of having that sort of core retirement sort of vibe with the scale to have the amenities and groups. But in terms of operations and logistics and the maintenance, and you can go into some of those other places and they do show their age a little bit. Or in the case of Stonecroft, which is a beautiful community in New Hamburg, it's just farther out of the way, and it's a snowy drive in the wintertime as you head out towards Stratford, between Stratford and Kitchener, for your listeners that don't know. And so when you're doing that on a routine basis, it's as you get a little bit older, that becomes a little bit isolating. And the great thing about the village too is its location sort of right across from the University of Guelph, so you have transit, you have things very accessible. There's walkability to either the Arboretum or going over to a lecture series perhaps, or as I mentioned, the bus comes right into the village center amenity building, so you can go off-site to the university or downtown, or even to the north end of town very easily. So it's really designed to be able to age in place and have some of those sort of core features that other communities can't offer because of either their location or their age or their scale or whatever.
Yeah, and that's just it, because a lot of people have families as well, whether they live in Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, or even in Toronto. You're only an hour away from them, and you have all of the amenities. So that's something to be said about this community. Now,
yeah, without a doubt.
55 years old, that seems pretty young. I'm 48, man. I can live that not too long from now. Is that, you said that's a trend that people are getting in there a little bit younger? Or is it more older? Because I know at one point it seemed like there was a lot of older people. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It just, there was a stigma.
For sure. And I think, when I use the word younger or older, it's all relative, right? But yeah, I mean, there originally a lot of the buyers were sort of, 75 when they started considering the village. And I'd say now we see more people at sort of 60, 65, at least begin to have those conversations. And whether they're actively looking to buy or whether they're just doing their homework to sort of start planning for what the next 10, 15 years looks like, that's often when we sort of make that first connection with them. And the age distribution of residents in the village is somewhat bimodal. You have a lot of original owners who are sort of in their 85 to 95 range, and maybe they've moved from a house to a condo at one point, but they've stayed within the community. And then you have another group who largely arrived here in the last 10 years, and those people would be sort of in that 60 to 70 range. And obviously if they've been here longer, maybe they bought at 65, so now they're 75. And then you sort of have that 10-year void, or it's a soft void. Obviously there's lots of blending, but between 75 and 85, where maybe there's not as many people just because of that demographic shift to younger.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit more to the transition from bungalow to mid-rise? Because a lot of people don't really know that you can sort of flow through life. And correct me if I'm wrong, is there I don't know what to call it, an old age home there as well?
There is, yeah. So the way the village is designed is to do exactly that, sort of age in place, and so have all of those things right here for you throughout in the entirety of your retirement. So if you move in here at, for example, 65 years old, you can buy, a bigger bungalow if you're having Christmas and the kids are close and the grandkids are coming over and you need, that finished basement. You can have, a 4,000 square foot house here over two levels, bungalow and finished basement. But then, there is a mix of townhomes, and then as you mentioned, going into that mid-rise, there are two 4-story condominiums here, 81 units between the two buildings, and those are a very easy downsizing condo to move into relative to other apartment style condominiums you'll see around town. So the average size of those for a 1-bedroom is about 1,150 square feet, and the 2 bedrooms go up to almost 1,700 square feet. So that is the size of the house that some of these people are coming from. And so when I think a lot of people conceptualize downsizing, they say, I'm really not prepared to give up all my room and live in this little box. And the reality is it's not that at all. And so the great thing about the village is as you do find you need a little bit less room, or the house becomes a lot of maintenance for you, or whatever, you can keep your social circle, all your friends, all your sort of day-to-day lifestyle that you're used to, and simply move from a bigger house into a condominium apartment. And so between those two 4-story buildings, there is also a 5-story rental building, and then there is, as you mentioned, Schlegel Villages operates what they call the Village of Arbor Trails, and that is a retirement residence that has everything from independent living. So that is basically an apartment with 1 or 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms in some cases, a kitchenette, and just really on a meal plan. So you can go for lunch and dinner, and then you provide your own breakfast, all the way through to memory care and long-term care as well. So very specialized care. And what they try and do in there is maintain your rent as you move throughout what they call their continuum of care. So as your cognitive abilities perhaps decline, or you perhaps move in there as 2 partners, and just being realistic, you may have one partner pass or require a level of care that they don't offer. Then you can end up being in a situation where you wouldn't want your rent to impact your ability to actually get the care you need, and so they try and keep that rent fixed as they move through to add services and just trade off space instead. So that way they keep people in a level of service that actually fits their needs.
That's really interesting. Oh, man. So when I think about a person that, they're around 55, 65, like you said, really they can plan their whole life up to the end. And because what I'm thinking about, I'm just thinking about my own situation with I'll take my grandmother. She is now 98, bless her heart. She's in an old age home, and it's not pleasant. It really isn't. But to get there, she went from another age home to there, and I think there was even another one before that. For various reasons, she had to move through that. And then, the transition from the house that she used to live in, however many years ago that was. And so each time you do that, there is a shift in your community.
For sure.
And that's got to be hard on somebody's emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, all of that stuff that makes us healthy.
Totally. And you move to the village or other retirement residences, and a lot of time people make that move in retirement to be closer to their kids or grandkids, or both. And the reality becomes that they lead busy lives, and so as much as you move there to be closer to them, you may spend rather than 2% of your time with them, 7% of your time with them, which is great and very much worth it in a lot of cases. But you still have 93% of your time where your community and your surroundings are basically where you have to derive joy and as you say, that good mental health situation. So the great thing about being able to age in place is, and a lot of people relocate here from quite a distance, A, it's very easy to make friends, and B, it's very easy to continue with those friends because a lot of those people have the same plan as you, to be here long term. And so as you move through that continuum of care, you can get all of the same services, but you're still having dinner and you're still going to dances with the same people you went to 15 years ago. So your residence changes, and where you sleep changes, but your day-to-day routine doesn't have to drastically change. And I think, as you mentioned, especially when you go into some of that government-supported care where you almost get told where to go, that can be very disruptive and very debilitating for people who are already in a precarious mental health situation as they deal with the stresses of aging and their health failing and things like that. So the ability to sort of plan to have that part looked after and simply move through the continuum of care in one place, but still maintain your sort of day-to-day thing that gives you the sense of purpose and excitement and a reason to get up and get out of bed in the morning, I think goes a long way towards longevity and that mental health piece you talk about.
Absolutely. So that sounds absolutely amazing. So what's the catch?
So in terms of like uniquities of the village, one of the hardest or most unique pieces to get around is the fact that the University of Guelph actually owns the land that the houses are built on. So it's not a catch so much as it is just a different ownership structure. And so when you buy in the village by the Arboretum, if it's a house, you would basically take a 20-year lease that's renewable at your option on the piece of land on which your house sits, and then you buy the structure outright. So you take responsibility then for things like the roof, the windows, the driveway, the deck, the maintenance of the inside, but you have total autonomy over the inside. So if you want to renovate it and make it exactly what you want for the next 20, 25 years, by all means you have the ability to do that, and nobody would come in and say you can't, blow a wall out. And the houses are actually very pliable and malleable, and they're very well built, so it gives you the ability to sort of really make it your own. But that land lease piece, for some people, they've grown up with the notion that, you buy dirt or you buy land and you hold that land and it goes up in price and all that stuff. And what we found is that the market here in the village really follows the trajectory of the outside market. I mean, if people have more money to spend, they're going to come here and spend more on this house. If they find that the market is receding, as it did last year in some cases, we'll see that effect as well. But largely, even though you don't have an outright freehold interest in the land, your investment has still been protected. And so there's definitely people we speak to where we introduce that piece, which we try and be obviously upfront about, but we explain that factor to them, and for some people it's kind of a non-starter, and for others they come around, and some people, they don't care. They say at the end of the day, like, this is their retirement, this is what they saved their money for, this is what they earned over their lifetime to be able to afford themselves that lifestyle. And that's the piece that's hard to quantify. There's no historical investment analogy for buying into lifestyle, but at the end of the day, you got to spend 20 years with a lot of free time in a place that you really want to be, because you're going to be there a lot more than you ever were at home, during your working career. So you got to kind of find that right fit, and for a lot of people, because of all the things we talked about there, it tends to be the right fit. As an added bonus, because you're not buying the land, there's no land transfer tax, for example. So coming in here, you're saving, not saving, but it's a $15,000 or $20,000 expense that maybe you don't have. And so, that can be new floors, or that can be new appliances, or whatever. So from that sort of mindset, it gives you the ability to sort of come in and put your own touches on it with money that you're keeping in your pocket. The other thing too is, like, for even between me and my wife, like, I could move into the village today and be totally happy and go putt around and play shuffleboard, and I'd be thrilled. But, she's busy. She likes to go out for, dinner with her friends, and, she's not the most, social, outgoing person that's going to go, to these things just for the sake of going to them. And so some people are going to like it, and some people are not going to, see the same value in it. And you're paying for it whether you use it or you don't. And so that obviously is a piece of the puzzle. And so, there are monthly fees here, and if you want, we can kind of get into that too.
Yeah, actually, if you wouldn't mind explaining how that works. So there's a land lease that you mentioned, and then there's also a condo piece, and they're sort of put together?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
how that
right.
works?
Yeah, so because it's not necessarily a condominium per se, it does operate very similar to one, but you have a monthly fee. And for example, on a townhome, it's based, for all the properties, it's based on the size of the property that you purchase. So if you buy a townhome on a 27 or 33 foot lot, that's going to have a monthly fee in the sixes, the high 600s per month. And then into the detached homes on a 40 foot lot, you're in the mid 700s per month. And then into the bigger 50 plus foot property frontages, you're going to have about an $800 per month monthly fee. So about $400 of that, for simplicity's sake, goes towards the land lease. So over the course of a 20-year term, you're paying roughly $85,000 in land lease fee. But you're still not getting to what that would cost you to outright buy that land if you were assessing it on a per frontage, per front foot sort of value. And then the balance of that monthly fee, so call it $300, goes to cover all of the amenities and the maintenance of the grounds. So here, all your snow shoveling, gardening is all looked after. So they plow the driveway, they shovel your front walk and salt it. So when you wake up and go out after a snowfall, you just simply walk right out into your driveway or over to the center or get your mail, and it's you know you're not going to slip and fall, which obviously is more important as things go along. And then all your garden beds are tended to, weeded. They've got a great assortment of perennial plantings, and they're always changing out the plantings at the front when you drive in. If you come back 3 weeks later, it's different annuals in the front as the seasons change. So they're very, very diligent about stuff like that. And residents hold it in pretty high esteem, and they have a pretty high expectation for the standard of how things are kept. And then there is that monthly fee balance also covers the center. So your participation in the majority of those clubs is included in that. There's no amenity building fees over and above. So if you want to go swimming, you want to bring the grandkids swimming, for example, there's no charge to do that. That's included in your monthly fee. And then there's a reserve fund contribution for the infrastructure as well as that center, all included in that fee. So, your $600 to $800, 10 years ago when it was $400 to $500, I got more pushback on it at the time because other condos were $200 and $300, and I said, oh my goodness, $500. But now we have luxury condos in Guelph where the monthly fee is over $1,000, and so people come in here and they say, oh, it's only $600. Wow, that's amazing. So it's really been a paradigm shift as far as your value for your fees. And I've always thought, if you take advantage of the lifestyle and it appeals to you, and that's a good reason why you're here, you're not going to feel those monthly fees the same way. It's like a gym membership. If you're going, you don't even think about how much it costs you. If you're just seeing the direct withdrawal from your account every month, you're going to hate it. But that's just kind of how anything goes. It's all the value you derive.
Yeah, it's so true. I was thinking the same thing you just said, because I do a Monday high-low. I talk about the high price and the low price in the city. And the highest price 2 weeks ago, I guess, was a condo that sold for $1.2 million. And I looked at the condo fees. Can't remember what they were exactly, but it was like over $1,000. I'm like, holy smokes. Not only do you have potentially a mortgage for that much, but you have that commitment. And it makes the Arboretum look so cheap. You're absolutely right. I remember thinking about that, 15 years ago. Oh my God, that's so expensive in there. But it's nothing. For all the amenities that you get. Like if you happen to go there, I'm sure you can do a tour. It is absolutely amazing. And especially if you go in the summertime when you drive in, like you're talking about the flowers, the pond with the waterfall, and it's a gated community too, so you have to go through a gate that seems to be always open, which maybe you'll tell me why that is in a minute. But it's absolutely beautiful. And you would really, I don't have any clients in there that don't like it. Obviously they bought there, but nobody complains. They just absolutely love it, and you'll find your place to belong. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like I think you said 92 or something.
Club
things you can be a part of, clubs you can be a part of.
And like those run all sorts of different interests, right? So some of them are athletics, some of them are social, some of them are craft based, some of them are singing, bands, choirs. I didn't really touch on that, but they've got a great group of bands that all practice out of here, and some of them go out and put on fundraisers. At one group did a night at Manhattan's. They sold out Manhattan's and did a big fundraiser there. We were lucky enough to sponsor. They took us on, but that's just great. Like there really is sort of something for everybody, and it runs like a condo, but the residents do have a residents association, so their input is taken and effectuated in terms of how they want to see the center run. So that monthly fee is geared to inflation as well. So it's considered rent because of the land lease situation, and so the same metrics that govern the Ontario, like a lease in Ontario, in terms of the allowable increase per year, also governs the monthly fee in here. So where you look at some of these other condos where the fees when they bought, were $400 and now they're $1,000, you're not really worried that that's going to happen, and that's pretty important on a fixed income here in the village. But a lot of people are. They sort of have their nest egg, and they want to know how much that's coming out for, so that they can extrapolate that over 30 plus years and make sure that, you know, by the time they're 98, God willing, that there's still some money in the tank. And you know, so when we talk about that gatehouse, for example, like there used to be a gate person there 24/7, and the residents had a referendum probably 7-8 years ago, and they said, like, this is money, this is what it's costing us every year. These are other things we could do with that money. Knowing that, do you want to keep the guard 24/7? Do you want to have an overnight guard? Or do you just want to automate the gate so that it closes at dusk and then it's controlled access, just like a condo building, sort of from dusk until 7 a.m.? And the residents voted for that. And so then they did it. And so even though it's not a condo and there is an administration, they do take resident input into consideration and run it the way the residents want to see it. And the nice thing too is that, unlike most condos, you have somebody on site, or, you know, 4 full-time staff, where you can walk into the building and say, hey, you know, whenever they were cutting the grass, they missed my lawn. Can you have somebody come over? And because they have the landscaping in-house, it's a phone call to the guy riding around on the John Deere. He comes over in 10 minutes, he cuts it. It's no big deal. And so there's a lot of accountability, and it runs pretty cleanly because of that.
Yeah, it sounds like a great place. I am going to ask you a question which I already know the answer to, but I have to ask it. So it ties in with what you said, that you can only have 2 people living in there. Yet these are bungalows, and most of them have empty basements. Given today's housing crisis, has there ever been any consideration to being able to allow more people, maybe just family, to live there with certain parameters? Or is that just they want to maintain this certain image and lifestyle, and that's a no-go?
Yeah, so it trends toward the latter. There haven't been conversations around opening that up, and, you know, certainly I don't know if it's predicated on having, you know, been established that way, and so just nobody in here has felt it warranted that conversation, which, you know, some people certainly may disagree with. They do allow an exception for a third resident if there is a caregiver parameter. So if you had a dependent child, perhaps with a disability, or a parent who you gave care for, so you're 65, but mom is, you know, 90, and she needs a little bit of support, and rather than putting her or helping her move into a residence where she can get that care, you'd rather keep her under your roof so you can have a closer eye on her. They do allow that. So you're right, there are big houses in some cases, and some of them are a little bit more modest, but yeah, they do allow a third person in that situation. They don't want to break up you know, a family where you know, there is that dependency or that lifestyle need. But yeah, they haven't had broader conversations around expanding those sort of restrictions. I don't believe.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other question that I wanted to ask you, a little bit of a pivot here, is you're also involved with a lot of the towers that are being developed through Tricar in particular. What's going on with, I know that Tricar owns a number of properties in Guelph. I won't say them because I might not be supposed to say that. But what's being built? What are the time frames? How has the process gone so far? Because now, like, I mean, it seems like yesterday they built the first one, and now there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 towers with more to come. So what's going on in that world? And before you answer, I just kind of adjust the light here because it's in my eyes.
Yeah, no problem, for sure, yeah.
Not that I'm complaining about the sun. I love the sun. I do love the sun. I heard a statistic maybe 3 days or 4 days ago before the sun had finally come out, that since the beginning of winter, we've only had 30 hours of sunlight.
What a crazy stat, eh?
That is crazy.
Like, it doesn't feel like a real number. Like, that's one day.
It doesn't.
In whatever, 4.
I know. That is nuts. But now we've had, 3 or 4 consecutive days of sun. Everybody's feeling good. The spring's just around the corner.
I feel like a brand new person. So rolling into the Tricar question. So Tricar obviously is built. Their first building was River House down at Macdonell and Woolwich. in 2012. They launched the sales of that, and it occupied in 2014, and then River Mill followed that. Then they moved to the south end of Guelph and built Gordon Square 1 and 2. So that's sort of now your introduction to the city. If you're coming in off of Highway 6, you're heading in along Brock Road there, and all of a sudden you have these two 14-story towers. There is a third building to come there, and it has broken ground. So if you drive past the site at 1880 Gordon Street, so just south of Gosling Gardens, there is a third tower being built, and they reconfigured that site a couple of times because it had been slated for 5 towers, then 4, and they've condensed all of the density into 3 buildings, and so that third building will be a bit of an L-shaped building, bigger footprint but lower height, and so that's to just sort of preserve and protect against shadow impact on future development perhaps. And then they do have some options on other properties and own other property here in Guelph. They do have some other rental buildings slated for the south end of Guelph. So they're currently building in Deer Ridge and Kitchener. And so that building, there's 3 towers slated for that site, which is right behind Sportsworld Crossing. And then I expect that they'll move back to Guelph here as well. So they have that building at Gordon Square 3, and that timeline is a little bit TBD. Obviously, it depends on the market, and that whole pre-construction space has really been disrupted over the last, say, 18 months. Where there were a number of people that bought either on speculation or to move into there, and either didn't sell their other home, their primary residence right away. And so that move that they thought might have been a step down, now their primary property is worth what their downsizing move is costing them. And so I think just a little bit of the confidence in the pre-construction space has been a little bit eroded. The great thing about selling for Tricar is that A, they build a really good product, but B, they're able to build the site without a pre-sale requirement. So for us, it means that they can sort of launch the building whenever they see fit, and that we can have confidence then when we're talking to a buyer that it's not some field that is going to be developed say spring 2025, and then we don't get to the pre-sale requirement because the confidence has been eroded, and then we just give all these people their deposits back in 2 years and say, actually, sorry, it wasn't happening. Here, when you go to the site at Gordon Square 3, you've got 2 floors of concrete walls that you're looking at, and so by the time we launch sales, that might be 4, that might be 12, it won't be 12, the building's not 12, but you get the idea that things are actually happening, and that when I give you a timeline, that they're actually going to meet it. And if you have people that bought in those other buildings, that the timelines are remarkably consistent. They've done it so many times, they know how long it's going to take them to build a building. And subject to even things like COVID, they had a bit of a backlog with windows in one building, but otherwise, I mean, they just move their other trades around and they do as much as they can. And they haven't had a situation in any of the Guelph buildings where the timeline's been delayed beyond what I think most people would consider like a very reasonable timeline. So.
Yeah. Was the building Edgewater one that had the window problem?
Yeah, like you noticed there were a couple of boards on windows. Where it's not the greatest look aesthetically, and obviously it's just a temporary measure. And you'd rather do that than do like a Tyvek window, and then the elements get in. There's extra moisture in the unit, or they can't start finishing flooring and electrical and kitchens because you don't want it to crowd. All that's, I mean, there's a reason for all of it, but yeah, it happened there, and it happened at River Mill as well. And River Mill, I think, was the only one that was delayed a little bit more than others. But I think River House was actually ahead of schedule, which people at the time were blown away by, because all they knew was sort of Toronto high-rise construction, and they give you a date, but that date's not worth the paper it's written on. So it's a little bit all over the place.
Sure. Well,
so there's more stuff coming down the pike, Andrew. I just don't know exactly when everything's gonna hit the market. But the good thing is, like, there's more density coming, and I think that's what we all want to see. And certainly with them, as soon as they have the capacity, they'll build it.
And it's good to see them doing a mixture of owned versus rent as well. And I know there's incentive from the province and the federal government to build rental units, so it's good that way. Hopefully they can get on track pretty fast, though, because there's definitely a need for that, and hopefully that they are reasonable rent. And that's one thing, that we see often is in order for developers like Tricar to make money, that it has to be the high-end apartments. Would you say that that's true from your opinion, or is it just something that, from a layman's perspective, we just kind of make up?
No, I think they have a different suite mix than a lot of builders, and so they don't really build the 800 square foot 2-bedroom. Their product mix definitely skews towards more of like a downsizer move. I mean, at the end of the day, like, more units is obviously great, because whether it's rentals for somebody that doesn't currently have a place, whether that's a new Canadian or someone living with mom and dad to move into, or it's somebody that's going to sell their house and then their house will come up for sale and somebody makes a move up buy to that, and all of a sudden there's something for a first-time buyer or an investor to create a unit with a backyard for a family to move into. More units are going to be better kind of across the board. But yeah, I mean, it is sort of their brand to build a more luxury product, and so they've integrated some attainable suites into some of their buildings, but by and large, like, it is definitely a higher end product.
Yeah. And that's just it. A lot of people don't understand that there's a housing continuum, and if you just move people along that continuum, it frees up the lower end properties, we'll say.
Right? They are, yeah.
And so
yeah.
More units, the better. I want to go back to something you said about pre-construction and it sort of not being, people not being as confident in it. I haven't seen this so much in Guelph, but I've seen it in other communities big time, where people have purchased properties, and it's not just high-rise, it's all properties that are pre-construction, where they've purchased it specifically for the purpose of assigning the deal.
Yeah.
And, I remember talking to this lady who came across my desk as a lead. They wanted to buy pre-sale, and I'm like, I can help you a little bit, but here's someone else that can do it. I don't do a lot of it. But in the conversation, what she was saying is that she can't afford to buy the place, but she has $20,000. It's enough for the down payment. Yep. And by the time the place is built, it'll be worth X amount, and she's just going to assign it and make $50,000 or $60,000 or more. Yeah. So if she was talking about that, I'm certain there are hundreds of people that were doing the exact same thing. Have you come across that at all?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, like, pre-construction condos were, that resale speculator on steroids. Like, because rather than having to come up with the 20% down payment that they instituted for an investor purchase, like, at the time you're signing a condo deal, you don't have to declare whether you're buying it on investment or you're buying it for your own use. So, you make the $20,000 or $40,000, down payment there, which is, 5% or maybe even less of the purchase price. And all of a sudden you have, the right to an $800,000, $1 million condo unit. And, for Tricar, like, we definitely skewed all the marketing towards end users, but, inevitably there's investors that are going to buy that. And their deposit structure has always been very attractive to, sort of allow people into the market, and they make some concessions for first-time buyers and stuff like that. But the deposit structure compared to what you see in some other pre-con communities or buildings, was pretty low. So, we didn't have too many people that bought purely on speculation, but we've definitely had, instances where, people have gotten into some trouble on one end or another. Either they, were a lady like you just talked about, where they never had a prospect of closing it. It was just going to be easy to sell the contract and 5x your money. And then all of a sudden there's no buyer for your contract, even at the price you paid for it. And so all you're in it for is the 20 grand, and below that, the rest of it, you're kind of paying out of pocket to recoup any sort of money you've already spent. So that, I think, is going to be one of the bigger challenges that we see here, because there's going to be lots of product that's closing. And as you get more people that bought kind of in the heat of the market, I don't want to throw any other builders under the bus or anything like that, but there was a project in downtown Kitchener where they released 500, 600 square foot units adjacent to Google at $1,400 a foot. And I had an investor client that I was working with, and he sent it to me, and I've been watching it too. And he said, like, this is crazy, right? And I said, yeah, it's crazy. And I talked to somebody on the financing side, and they said, yeah, they sold them all. And I was blown away, because you've got people now that have paid, in that situation, $700,000 for a square foot unit in downtown Kitchener. Like, I'm not getting that for, you know, 1,000, 1,200 square foot 2-bedroom in downtown Kitchener right now. So those buildings are going to hit the market, or sorry, close in 2026, 2027. And you've got, you know, no real sustained rental demand that's going to be able to fill that building. All those units are all investors, so they're all going to either come up for lease or be assignments or sold on closing. And so that's going to further destroy the value there as everybody floods the market with supply from those buildings. So there's going to be some sort of fire sale stuff happening there. And so the question becomes, like, can those people close? And how much equity do they lose in their primary residence to sustain them on this side? And what's the builder going to do, you know, when those units aren't appraising and people don't have, you know, $250,000 extra dollars to put down on a, you know, on the purchase on closing? Like, they're going to get some units back, and the fallout then kind of goes all the way through, because then there's lenders that have lent money to build those, and so then they're not going to have, you know, the money coming in from that loan being paid down to lend back out on other construction projects. Like, it is just a big, you know, a domino effect. But yeah, there's definitely people that kind of bought into the froth and bought at the wrong time, and pre-construction was, you know, definitely an invitation to go crazy, because so much was predicated on future growth and actually no, you know, concrete fundamental value add on the part of the owner.
Do you think that builders have learned a bit of a lesson with what's going on now? And the reason I say that is because there really wasn't an incentive to vet a buyer, we'll say. As far as I know, when you buy a pre-construction place, they don't have to look at your papers and say you make so much money, almost like an accredited investor, right? They don't do that. It's like, here's my word, it's going to close in 3 years.
Yeah.
All I want is to have, you know, to say that the building's sold out.
Yeah. So I think, you know, it depends on the builder, right? So some of the builders that required, you know, more financing for the projects would have their financiers would stipulate that they get, you know, pre-approval letters. But even those, I mean, you can go to the bank and just say, I'm going to sell my house to fund this. And the bank says, oh, okay, then you're fine. And they'll write a letter that says, yeah, they've got the means. What that doesn't consider is, like, what happens if they don't sell their primary residence, or they never plan to sell their primary residence, or, you know, they could qualify at, you know, 2.5%, but they can't qualify at 6.5%. So that letter is not really worth a lot. And so, yeah, it is a conversation around who's actually buying this product. And I think there's definitely developers that got a little drunk on the ability to just, you know, release a floor at a time to, you know, an investor that they really don't know. You know, they're just a number, and then just hope that the money comes in on closing. There's really no touch points. Ironically, too, like with Tricar, we had a great relationship with RBC, and they offered, you know, a rate hold on the mortgages in that building. But I don't think, you know, a ton of people probably took them up on that, because at the time the rate hold rate is always, you know, say 2% higher than, you know, than the rate that you're expecting to pay if the rates stay stable. So, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I bought a unit at the second building at Gordon Square, and I think the rate hold figure was like 4.5%, and by the time, you know, we actually put a mortgage on it, it was like 5.79%. So, you know, I know these guys. Like, I'm in the mix, and I'm supposed to be the expert, and I didn't even take advantage of it. So I can't imagine, you know, people that aren't dealing with it and their lives don't revolve around staying on top of this stuff, you know, are necessarily going to have that conversation in advance. But, you know, that sort of rate hold can be the difference between, you know, a unit closing for the builder and a unit not closing for the builder. So you have to have more of those conversations up front, for sure.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20 for sure. I've noticed also that some developers are buying down interest rates.
Yeah, that's a trend that's sort of born out of necessity here, right? I think, you know, they've got supply, or they've got trades now that aren't working because, you know, they don't have stuff pre-sold. So their choices are either they spec the unit out, meaning they choose all of the finishes up front, and then they have to sell an inventory product, which is always a little less desirable, because part of the appeal of buying pre-construction, if whether it's a house or condo, is being able to make it kind of exactly what you want by the time you sort of take the keys. So if they don't want to do that, then they have to incentivize people to actually come to the table. And one of the ways they're doing that is by saying, yeah, I mean, like rates out there are, 5.25%, but you can come here and get a 3.99 mortgage for the first 2 or 3 years. And that's, it's a small investment up front relative to, the price haircut you may have to take on a unit if you sold it in a stressed market. So I get why they're doing it, and it's actually pretty wise. The problem, I mean, for you or anybody who's actually evaluating, the long-term value of that purchase is, yeah, it's great to have the rate hold now, but, if the choice is like either a finished basement or, a better rate for 2 years just to get you in there, I mean, it's better to try and find the money and take, the finished basement or the upgrades or whatever, because that rate goes away, or, perhaps you can refinance it or whatever, but you're going to have to do that basement yourself then at some point, or, it's a kitchen reno then at some point to get your house to be worth what it would have been worth if you took the incentive. So it is a bit of a teaser, but, for the builder, like they'd rather offer that rate hold than do the renovation. So because it kind of serves two purposes.
It's so true. Well, the cost of renovations are a lot higher too than there was when 3 years ago when people bought some of these places.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, the only saving grace now is it feels like there's been a shift in the contractor market in terms of availability. Like, you couldn't even get somebody to return your call for the last 2 or 3 years, and now it feels like when you call a contractor, they're kind of like, yeah, like, when do you want me to start? And yeah, exactly. So if there's been one good thing come out of it in terms of building equity into some of these properties, it's if you have the means, which again a lot of people are stressed and under sort of tight financial confines, but if you do have the means, that environment has at least improved a little bit. It might cost you more, but at least you can get somebody in to do it.
Absolutely. It would be nice if those same contractors that you talked about would reduce their rates, but a lot of them have increased them because they have less business, because they still have the mortgage on their house. They still have to put gas in their vehicle, things like that, right? So hopefully we see inflation come down, the cost of materials comes down, and we can add to our houses, or in my world, build basement apartments that are even more affordable. We do them fairly cheap. I was talking to another realtor the other day. I won't mention his name, but he was listening to a conversation I was having, and I was just talking about the cost of a basement that we did, and that one was about $85,000 all in taxes. Wow. And he goes, "What? I just paid $170 for my basement."
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and it was not much different. Maybe a little bit older house and things like that, but there wasn't that many things that would cost it to be almost $100,000 more. But you don't have a choice. Sometimes, like you said, you can't find a contractor. Materials are so high.
Yeah, if you want it, if you want it, and for some people, like that is the difference between being able to make their mortgage or not being able to make their mortgage. Right? It's an upfront investment, but you get that added cash flow, and that's what's going to keep you in one spot for as long as you want to. And eventually, if you do it well, and you don't need that income coming in long term, then at least you've got a nice space. But yeah, it's not without cost for sure.
Yeah, we're doing one right now for a single mother who her mortgage rates more than doubled, and she couldn't renew she couldn't refinance because she's only a single income. So what we did is we found somebody to finance it for her through their RRSPs. Oh, okay. So you can do a self-directed RRSP, and they did a second mortgage on that property. So now she has the money for that. And she originally was going to live in the basement and rent out the top because you can get more, but changed her mind. But that income that she gets from the basement apartment, minus what she has to pay for that second mortgage, which isn't a whole lot, is the difference of her having to sell that house and go into the rental market and waste that $400,000 equity that she couldn't touch. And it just gets burned over the next 10 years, right? Sure. So that's I think more people should be looking at doing that if they can, if they have the opportunity to it. It's not for everybody, but for those of you who are out there listening, give us a call. I know this is not a podcast about me today, but I do want to promote affordable housing. And give us a call. There are solutions out there. That's just one example of how we were able to get around her not being able to get the money. And there are lovely people out there that are willing to use their resources that they've built over the last 50 years of their lives, and are willing to contribute to our community. So just get in contact with me and we'll put you in touch with somebody.
And what better way to have something that has positive externalities on an investment? Like it's great to make a return and utilize that, but at the same time, you can do a lot of things with it that aren't going to have such a tangible impact in the community you live in. So to that end.
100%. Yeah, and that's the thing is I've talked to so many people that have their money or RSPs or whatever it is in mutual funds, and they're frustrated that they go up and down. There's zero control over, their return on that investment. But yet when you talk about something like doing a second mortgage to help somebody get a basement apartment that is now backed by an asset that they can drive by and look at. And not only that, but they're helping the community by creating another place to live and causing that same person that owns the house to be able to stay there. It's just a win-win-win for everybody. So anyways,
1,000%.
I digress. Tyson, I thank you for your time. It's been probably about an hour. Most of these things take about an hour. I know you're a busy guy. Before we go, I just want to give you a chance to say what's on your mind, just kind of closing remarks. And hopefully you can be on the podcast again in the future.
Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation. Obviously, that's two main components of my business: the Village by the Arboretum and some of the new construction stuff here in Guelph. Obviously, your listeners are very fond of you, but if somebody does have questions about the Village by the Arboretum, they can always ask you. And if you don't know, I'm always happy to be a resource there. And if they want to follow me for sort of my thoughts on the market, they can follow me on Instagram or on Twitter at Agent Hinch. So happy to engage with anybody and answer questions, either of those spots.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Tyson. Have yourself an amazing day, and we'll talk soon.
As well.
All right, take care.